Zara never imagined that serving the wrong table would completely change her life forever. What started as a simple mistake at the luxurious Meridian Hotel in Cairo turned into a whirlwind of confusion, wealth, and unexpected romance that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, identity, and destiny. But when the powerful Arab executive Omar Al-Mansouri locked eyes with her and whispered, "You're even more beautiful than your photograph," Zara realized she was trapped in a case of mistaken identity that could either destroy her humble life or transform it beyond her wildest dreams. Stay until the end to discover how one wrong table service led to the most shocking revelation that no one saw coming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floors of the Meridian Hotel as Zara Okafor hurried through the grand lobby, her worn-out sneakers squeaking softly against the gleaming surface. At 24, she had been working as a waitress at Cairo's most prestigious hotel for nearly 2 years, sending every spare penny back to her family in Lagos, Nigeria. Her mother's medical bills were mounting, and her younger brother's university fees were due soon. Every shift mattered. Every tip counted. Zara adjusted her crisp white uniform and checked her reflection in one of the hotel's ornate mirrors. Her dark skin glowed under the crystal chandeliers, and her natural hair was pulled back into a neat bun as required by the hotel's strict dress code. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for another day of serving Cairo's elite, wealthy businessmen, diplomats, and tourists who barely acknowledged her existence. The head waiter, Hassan, approached her with his usual stern expression. "Zara, table 12 has been reserved for a very important guest, Mr. Omar Al-Mansouri, the oil executive. He's expecting someone special today, so everything must be perfect. No mistakes." Zara nodded, familiar with the routine. The Meridian attracted powerful men who conducted their most important business over expensive meals. She had served countless executives, politicians, and celebrities, always maintaining the professional invisibility that was expected of the hotel staff. Dining room was already buzzing with the morning's first guests when Zara began her rounds. She moved efficiently between tables, taking orders and serving breakfast to the hotel's distinguished clientele. Her mind was focused on the tasks at hand, calculating how many tables she needed to serve to make enough in tips for her mother's medication. At exactly 10:30 a.m., she noticed a man in expensive navy suit sitting alone at table 14. He was checking his watch repeatedly and appeared to be waiting for someone. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and even from a distance, Zara could see the quality of his clothes, the kind of wealthy businessman who was accustomed to the finest things in life. Table 12 remained empty, but Zara assumed the guest Hassan had mentioned was running late. She continued her service, but something made her glance again at the man at table 14. He looked anxious, almost nervous, which was unusual for the typically confident businessmen who frequented the hotel. As she passed by his table carrying a tray of coffee for another guest, the man looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, time seemed to stop. His gaze was intense, penetrating, as if he were studying her face with recognition. Zara felt a strange flutter in her stomach but quickly looked away, reminding herself that she was just part of the background scenery for these wealthy patrons. "Excuse May," the man called out in accented English. His voice was deep, commanding, but not unkind. "Could you please bring me a coffee? Black, no sugar." Zara nodded and hurried to fulfill his request. When she returned with the coffee, she noticed he was still watching her intently. As she set the cup down, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small photograph, glancing between the image and her face. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. Zara was taken aback. Guests rarely asked for her name unless they were making a complaint. "Zara, sir, Zara Okafor." The man's eyes widened slightly, and he studied the photograph again. Okafor, he repeated slowly, as if testing the sound of her surname. Tell me, Zara, where are you from? This was becoming increasingly unusual. Zara shifted uncomfortably, wondering if she had done something wrong. Nigeria, sir, Lagos. The man leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. Of course, Nigeria. He folded the photograph and placed it back in his pocket. You're even more beautiful than your photograph. Zara's heart skipped a beat. Photograph? What photograph? She must have misheard him. I'm sorry, sir, but I think there's been some confusion. No confusion at all. He interrupted, standing up from his chair. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. You're exactly what I expected. My name is Omar Al-Mansouri. The name hit Zara like a lightning bolt. This was the important guest Hassan had mentioned. The one who was supposed to be at table 12. Somehow he had been seated at table 14 instead, and now he was talking to her as if he knew her personally. Mr. Al-Mansouri, she began, her voice shaking slightly. I believe you're supposed to be at table 12. There's been a seating mistake. Omar stepped closer, his eyes never leaving her face. The only mistake would be if I let you walk away. He reached out and gently touched her arm. I've been waiting for this moment for months. Zara's mind raced. This made no sense. She had never met this man before in her life, yet he was speaking to her as if they had some kind of prior arrangement. She glanced around the dining room, hoping Hassan or one of the other staff members would intervene, but everyone seemed to be busy with their own tasks. Sir, I think you have me confused with someone else, Zara said, trying to maintain her professional composure while her heart pounded in her chest. I'm just a waitress here. I serve tables. You don't need to pretend anymore, Omar said softly, his voice taking on an intimate tone that made Zara's skin tingle. I know this situation is unconventional, meeting like this, but I wanted to see you in person. Before we made things official. Official? Zara's mouth went dry. Mr. Al-Mansouri, I really think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please, call me Omar, he said, his hand still resting lightly on her arm. And there's no misunderstanding. Your family contacted my family months ago about the arrangement. I've been looking forward to meeting my bride. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Bride? Her mind reeled as she tried to process what he was saying. This wealthy, powerful man thought she was his arranged bride? But that was impossible. Her family had never mentioned anything about an arranged marriage, and she certainly hadn't agreed to marry anyone. I'm not your bride, Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know what arrangement you're talking about, but I'm not involved in any marriage plans. Omar's expression shifted slightly, confusion flickering across his confident features. But you're Zara Okafor from Lagos, Nigeria. Your father is Samuel Okafor, and your family has been in financial difficulty due to your mother's medical expenses. Zara's blood ran cold. How did he know about her mother's illness? How did he know her father's name? This couldn't be a coincidence. Someone had given him detailed information about her family situation. How do you know about my mother? She asked, her voice trembling. Omar's smile returned, but it was gentler now, almost tender. Because I've been taking care of the medical bills for the past 3 months. Your family needed help, and I was happy to provide it in exchange for your agreement to marry me. The ground seemed to shift beneath Zara's feet. The medical bills had been mysteriously paid off 3 months ago, and her family had told her that a benefactor had stepped forward to help. They had been so relieved, so grateful, but they had never mentioned anything about a marriage arrangement. That's impossible, Zara said, shaking her head. My family would have told me about something like that. They would never arrange a marriage. Without my knowledge, Omar's brow furrowed. But they did tell you. Your father signed the agreement, and your mother sent me your photograph. Everything has been arranged according to traditional customs. Zara felt dizzy. Nothing made sense. Her family had always been progressive, supportive of her independence and her decision to work in Cairo. They would never have arranged a marriage without her consent, especially not to a stranger. "I need to sit down," she whispered, her legs. Feeling weak, Omar immediately guided her to a chair at his table, his concern evident. "You look pale. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," Zara lied, though her world was spinning. "Mr. Al-Mansouri, Omar, I need you to understand something. I have never agreed to marry anyone. If my family made some kind of arrangement, they did it without my knowledge or consent." Omar studied her face intently, and for the first time, doubt crept into his expression. "You're serious, aren't you? You really don't know about the marriage arrangement?" "I swear to you, I had no idea," Zara said, her voice gaining strength. "I came to work today, just like any other day. I served your table by mistake because you were sitting in the wrong seat. This is all a terrible misunderstanding." The silence stretched between them as Omar processed her words. Finally, he reached into his pocket again and pulled out the photograph. He handed it to Zara, and she gasped when she saw it. It was definitely her, a picture from her university graduation. 2 years ago. She was wearing her cap and gown, smiling brightly at the camera. But how had Omar gotten this photograph? And why did he believe it was connected to a marriage arrangement? "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your father sent it to my family's representative," Omar replied, his own voice uncertain now. "Along with a letter explaining your family situation and your willingness to enter into a marriage arrangement to help secure your mother's medical care." Zara stared at the photograph, her mind racing. Either her family had betrayed her trust in the most devastating way possible, or someone else was playing a dangerous game with all of their lives. And as she looked up into Omar's confused and increasingly concerned eyes, she realized that both of their worlds were about to be turned completely upside down. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The photograph trembled in Zara's hands as she stared at her own smiling face. The weight of betrayal settled in her chest like a stone, making it difficult to breathe. How could her family have done this to her? How could they have sold her future without even telling her? Omar watched her carefully, his initial confidence now replaced with growing concern. He leaned forward, lowering his voice so the other hotel guests couldn't overhear their conversation. "Zara, I need you to tell me exactly what you know about your family's financial situation over the past few months." She looked up at him, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. 3 months ago, my mother's doctor told us she needed surgery that would cost more than my father makes in 5 years. We were desperate. Then suddenly, someone paid all the medical bills anonymously. My parents said it was a miracle, a generous benefactor who wanted to help. And they never mentioned any conditions attached to this help, Omar pressed. "Never," Zara whispered. "They just said we were blessed, that someone had heard about our situation and wanted to help without expecting anything in return." Omar's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages, then showed Zara the screen. "This is the correspondence I received from the marriage broker my family uses. Look at the name here." Zara's eyes widened as she read the sender's name, Omar Okafor. Her father's name was right there in black and white, attached to messages discussing marriage arrangements, dowry payments, and her supposed eagerness to marry into a wealthy family to secure her future. "This can't be real," she breathed. "My father would never. He's always supported my independence. He was proud when I got this job, proud that I was making my own way in the world." Omar studied her face intently. "Either you're an incredibly talented actress, or we've both been manipulated by someone very clever." Before Zara could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed her father's name. With shaking hands, she answered. "Baba?" she said, using the Yoruba word for father. "Zara, my daughter," her father's familiar voice came through the speaker. "How are you? How is work at the hotel?" "Baba, I need to ask you something very important," Zara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Did you arrange a marriage for me with a man named Omar Al-Mansouri?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like an eternity. Finally, her father spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "How did you find out?" The confirmation hit Zara like a physical blow. Omar watched as her face crumpled, and he instinctively reached across the table to steady her. "How could you?" Zara's voice broke. "How could you sell me like property? How could you lie to me for months?" "Zara, please listen to me." Her father's voice was thick with emotion. "We had no choice. Your mother was dying, and we had no money for the surgery. When the marriage broker approached us with this opportunity, we saw it as the only way to save her life, but you never told me." Zara cried, her voice attracting glances from nearby tables. Omar signaled for her to keep her voice down, but his expression was sympathetic. "We were going to tell you," her father continued. "We planned to explain everything when you came home for your mother's recovery. The broker assured us that Mr. Al-Mansouri was a good man, wealthy and kind. He said you would have a better life than we could ever give you. That wasn't your decision to make." Zara's hands shook as she gripped the phone. "I'm 24 years old, Baba. I have the right to choose my own husband, my own life." Omar gently took the phone from her trembling hands. "Mr. Okafor? This is Omar Al-Mansouri, sir." Zara's father's voice became formal, respectful. "I am honored to speak with you. I hope my daughter has been—" "Mr. Okafor," Omar interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. "I need you to understand something. Your daughter knew nothing about this arrangement. She's been completely unaware of any marriage plans." Another long silence. Then, "I don't understand. The broker told us she had agreed. He said she was eager to secure her family's future through marriage." Omar's eyes met Zara's, and she saw her own suspicion reflected in his gaze. "What was the name of this marriage broker, Mr. Okafor?" "Adebayo Fashola," her father replied. "He came to us with all the proper documentation, photos of you, sir, and detailed information about your family and business. He seemed very legitimate." Omar's expression darkened. "Mr. Okafor, I've never heard of anyone named Adebayo Fashola. The marriage broker my family uses is named Hassan al-Rashid, and he's based here in Cairo." The implications of this revelation hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Someone had been playing an elaborate game, using both families as pawns. "Baba," Zara said, taking the phone back, "describe this Adebayo Fashola to me." He was a well-dressed man, maybe 50 years old, with a neat beard. He spoke excellent English and seemed very knowledgeable about traditional marriage customs. He had an expensive car and carried himself like a successful businessman. Omar was already pulling up something on his phone. He showed Zara a news article with a photograph. "Is this the man?" Zara gasped and quickly described the photo to her father. "Yes," he exclaimed. "That's him exactly. Who is he?" Omar's face was grim as he read from the article. "Adebayo Fashola is a known con artist who specializes in marriage fraud. He was arrested in Lagos 6 months ago for running fake marriage broker schemes, but apparently he was released on bail and has been operating under false pretenses." The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place, but the picture they formed was more sinister than either Zara or Omar had imagined. "Mr. Okafor," Omar continued, "I need you to tell me exactly how much money you received from this man, and whether you signed any legal documents." "He paid all of my wife's medical bills directly to the hospital," her father replied. "Nearly $50,000 American. And yes, I signed papers. but he said they were just formal agreements to ensure the marriage arrangements would be honored. Zara felt sick. Her family had been targeted by a sophisticated criminal who had exploited their desperation and love for each other. But why? What did Fashla gain from this elaborate deception? Omar was thinking the same thing. There's something bigger going on here, he murmured to Zara. This isn't just a simple marriage scam. Someone wanted to bring us together specifically, and they were willing to spend a lot of money to make it happen. But why? Zara asked. We've never met before today. We have no connection to each other. Omar's phone rang, interrupting their conversation. He glanced at the caller ID and his face went pale. I have to take this, he said, answering the call in rapid Arabic. Zara watched his expression change from confusion to alarm to something approaching fear. When he hung up, his hands were shaking slightly. What is it? She asked. That was my assistant, Omar said, his voice tight. Someone has been asking questions about me at my office building in Dubai. The same man you described, Adebayo Fashula. He was there yesterday, claiming to be a journalist writing an article about successful Arab businessmen. The web of deception was growing more complex by the minute. Zara's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it all. Omar, what kind of business are you in exactly? Oil and gas exploration, he replied. My company has drilling rights in several African countries, including Nigeria. We're involved in some very lucrative contracts. A chill ran down Zara's spine. What if this isn't about marriage at all? What if someone is using me to get to you? Omar's eyes widened as the implications hit him. Industrial espionage. If someone wanted to get close to me, to gain access to my business dealings or personal information, orchestrating a fake marriage would be a perfect cover. But I don't know anything about oil or business, Zara protested. You don't need to know anything, Omar said grimly. You just need to be someone I trust, someone I let into my life. Once we were married, you'd have access to my home, my computer, my private conversations. The horror of their situation was becoming clear. Zara wasn't just a victim of a marriage scam. She was an unwitting pawn in what appeared to be a corporate espionage plot. Her family's medical crisis had been exploited to turn her into a weapon against Omar's business empire. We have to call the police, Zara said, but Omar shook his head. Not yet. If we involve law enforcement now, we might scare off whoever is behind this before we can figure out their real plan. And your family could be in danger if Fashula realizes we've discovered his deception. Zara's blood ran cold. My family? Think about it, Omar said. He paid $50,000 for your mother's surgery. That's a huge investment for a simple con artist. Someone with serious money is backing this operation, and they won't be happy if their plan falls apart. As if summoned by their fears, Zara's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Congratulations on meeting your future husband. I trust the introduction went smoothly. Remember, your family's continued health depends on your cooperation. A friend, Zara showed the message to Omar, and his face went white. They were being watched, their every move monitored by whoever was orchestrating this elaborate scheme. We're not safe here, Omar said, standing up abruptly. If they're watching us, they know we've figured out something is wrong. Where can we go? Zara asked, her heart pounding. Omar looked around the hotel dining room, calculating their options. I have a secure apartment across the city. But first, we need to make it look like everything is proceeding according to their plan. He took her hand and spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. Darling, why don't we continue this conversation somewhere more private? We have so much to discuss about our future together. Zara understood the performance he was putting on for any potential observers. She smiled and nodded, playing the role of a happy bride-to-be, even as fear coursed through her veins. As they walked out of the hotel together, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking deeper into a trap that had been months in the making. But she also realized that Omar was her only ally in this dangerous game, and if they were going to survive whatever was coming next, they would have to trust each other completely. The stakes had just gotten much higher than a simple case of mistaken identity, and Zara was beginning to understand that her life would never be the same again. The black sedan that Omar hailed outside the Meridian Hotel felt like a mobile prison as they sat in tense silence, both hyper-aware that every movement could be monitored. Omar gave the driver an address in Arabic, then turned to Zara with a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Tell me about your work schedule," he said conversationally, loud enough for the driver to hear. "When can you take time off for our wedding preparations?" Zara caught on quickly to his act. "I'll need to speak with my manager, but I'm sure he'll understand given the circumstances." Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. As Cairo's bustling streets flowed past the windows, Omar discreetly showed Zara his phone screen. He had typed a message: "My apartment has security sweeps done weekly. We can talk freely there. Play along until then." She nodded almost imperceptibly, then leaned closer to him, playing the role of an affectionate fiancée. "I still can't believe this is all happening so fast," she said, injecting wonder into her voice while her stomach churned with anxiety. The apartment building Omar directed them to was in Zamalek, one of Cairo's most exclusive neighborhoods. The doorman greeted Omar by name, and they rode the elevator to the 15th floor in continued silence. Only when the apartment door closed behind them and Omar activated a small electronic device that beeped twice did he finally speak freely. "Okay, we're secure now," he said, his shoulders sagging with relief. "That device detects listening equipment. We can talk." Zara looked around the spacious apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Nile. Everything was immaculate and expensive, from the marble floors to the hand-woven Persian rugs. It was a world away from her small shared flat across the city. "Omar, we need to contact my family immediately," she said. "If these people are as dangerous as that text message suggests." "Already done," Omar interrupted, showing her his phone. "I had my security team in Lagos make contact with your parents 20 minutes ago. They're being moved to a safe location as we speak." Zara stared at him. "You have a security team in Lagos?" "I have security teams in every city where my company operates," Omar replied grimly. "The oil business makes you a lot of enemies. Pirates, corrupt officials, corporate rivals, environmental extremists. The list is long." The reality of Omar's world was beginning to sink in. This wasn't just about money. It was about the kind of wealth and power that came with serious risks. "So you think this Fashula is working for one of your business rivals?" "It's the most logical explanation," Omar said, walking to a wall safe hidden behind a painting. "But I need to figure out which one. In the past year, my company has been involved in 3 major deals that could be worth billions if they go through." He pulled out a thick folder and spread documents across his dining table. "The first is a joint venture with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation for offshore drilling rights. The second is a contract to build a pipeline through Chad and Cameroon. The third is exploration rights in the Central African Republic." Zara studied the documents, trying to make sense of the technical language and financial figures. Any of these deals could make someone very rich or very poor depending on how they play out, she observed. "Exactly. And if someone had inside information about my negotiation strategies, my financial capabilities, or my personal weaknesses, they could either steal these deals from me or manipulate me into terms that favor them." Omar's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. His face darkened as he read it. "My security team found something at your parents' house. Fashula left behind surveillance equipment. Your family has been monitored for months." The violation felt like a physical blow. They were watching my parents? Listening to their private conversations? "It gets worse," Omar continued reading. The medical bills weren't just paid. Your mother's entire treatment was orchestrated. The doctor who recommended the expensive surgery has connections to a medical equipment company that's owned by a shell corporation. Zara felt sick. You're saying they made my mother sicker just to create leverage over my family? I'm saying they exploited an existing condition and potentially made it worse to create the perfect pressure point. Your father would have agreed to anything to save your mother's life. The calculating cruelty of it was breathtaking. Whoever was behind this had been willing to gamble with her mother's life as part of their business strategy. Zara's hands clenched into fists as anger began to override her fear. We have to stop them, she said. Not just for us, but for everyone else they might be planning to hurt. Omar looked at her with something approaching admiration. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. But it's going to be dangerous. If we're going to take them down, we need to let them think their plan is working while we gather evidence. What does that mean exactly? Omar moved to another section of his apartment and activated a sophisticated computer system. Multiple screens came to life, showing what appeared to be a comprehensive surveillance and communication setup. It means we're going to have to become engaged for real, at least on paper. We need to make them believe you're successfully infiltrating my life while we figure out who's really behind this and what they're after. Zara's heart skipped a beat. Fake engagement? Think about it, Omar explained, pulling up financial charts on one of his screens. If we suddenly break up or disappear, they'll know we've discovered their plot. But if we proceed with the engagement, they'll reveal more of their plan. Eventually, they'll make a move that exposes their real agenda. And what if they decide I'm not useful and try to eliminate me? Omar's expression grew serious. That won't happen. I have resources, Zara, more than most people realize. My security infrastructure is designed to protect against exactly these kinds of threats. He showed her a map on one of his screens with dozens of blinking dots. These are my security assets across the Middle East and Africa. Former military, intelligence operatives, corporate security specialists. If we do this right, we'll have protection while we investigate. But why would you help me? Zara asked. You could just walk away from all this. Your business empire isn't dependent on a marriage to one Nigerian waitress. Omar was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the Nile flowing far below. Because 3 years ago, someone tried to destroy my family's business using similar tactics. They targeted my younger sister, convinced her to marry someone who was actually a corporate spy. By the time we discovered the truth, they had stolen $500 million worth of trade secrets. What happened to your sister? She died in a car accident 3 days after we confronted her husband about his real identity. Omar's voice was flat, emotionless. The authorities called it a suicide, but I know it was murder made to look like guilt-driven self-destruction. The pain behind his controlled facade was evident, and Zara felt a stab of sympathy for this powerful man who had lost someone he loved to the same kind of scheme that was now targeting them. I won't let them destroy another family, Omar continued. And I won't let them use you the way they used Layla. Zara made her decision. What do we need to do? Omar turned back to his computer system. First, we announce our engagement publicly. Social media, press releases, the works. We make it look like a whirlwind romance that's moving very fast. Won't that seem suspicious? Rich men marry quickly all the time, especially when it comes to beautiful women from different backgrounds. The media loves these stories. Omar pulled up several news articles about similar marriages. We'll be a 3-day wonder and then fade into the background. And then we start our real investigation. We trace every financial transaction related to your mother's medical care. We identify all of Fashila's associates, and we follow the money until we find who's really pulling the strings. Omar activated another screen that showed a complex web of corporate relationships and financial flows. Someone with access to serious resources is behind this. The kind of person who can afford to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a long-term operation. How long do you think we have before they make their real move? Based on the timeline of their planning, I'd guess 2 to 3 weeks. Long enough for us to have a proper engagement period, plan a wedding, and for you to gain access to my business. Operations. Zara studied the documents and screens around them, trying to absorb the magnitude of what they were contemplating. This is insane. 24 hours ago, I was worried about making enough tips to send money home. Now I'm planning to fake an engagement to catch corporate spies who nearly killed my mother. Are you having second thoughts? Zara thought about her parents, about her mother's recovery, about all the other families who might be targeted by whoever was behind this scheme. No, but I need to know something first. What if we do this? If we pretend to be engaged while investigating these people, what happens between us? I mean, personally? Omar met her eyes directly. We maintain professional boundaries. This is a business arrangement designed to protect both our families and stop dangerous criminals. Nothing more. And after it's over? After it's over, you'll be free to return to your life, and I'll make sure your family is financially secure enough that you never have to worry about medical bills or education costs again. It sounded almost too good to be true, but Zara could see the sincerity in Omar's eyes. He had been hurt by this kind of betrayal before, and he was offering her a chance for justice while protecting her family. All right, she said, extending her hand to shake on their agreement. Let's catch these bastards. Omar smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him since their strange meeting began. Welcome to the team, fiancé. As they shook hands, both of them knew they were stepping into a game where the stakes were higher than either had imagined, and where trust between strangers might be the only thing standing between them and disaster. 3 days later, Zara found herself standing in front of the mirror in Omar's guest bedroom, adjusting a designer dress that cost more than she earned in 6 months. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the simple waitress in her hotel uniform, replaced by an elegant woman who could believably be the fiancée of a wealthy oil executive. Layla had been thorough in preparing them for their roles. Zara now wore a 2-carat engagement ring that caught the light with every movement. Her hair had been professionally styled by Cairo's most exclusive salon, and her wardrobe had been completely replaced with clothes befitting her new status. But beneath the silk and diamonds, she wore a nearly invisible wire that would transmit every conversation to Layla's surveillance team. Remember, Layla said, adjusting the tiny earpiece that was hidden beneath Zara's newly styled hair. The goal today is to make contact with their network. We need them to believe that you're completely unaware of the deception and that you're falling for Omar exactly as they planned. Omar appeared in the doorway, wearing an impeccably tailored suit that emphasized his commanding presence. For a moment, Zara forgot this was all an act. He looked every inch the successful businessman who could sweep a woman off her feet. Are you ready for this? He asked, his eyes searching her face for any sign of doubt. Zara nodded, though her stomach was churning with nervousness. What exactly am I supposed to do when I meet these people? Be yourself, Omar said simply. Be the woman who was confused and overwhelmed by suddenly being told she was engaged to a stranger. Show them exactly what they expect to see, someone who's still processing this sudden change in her life. Layla handed them both small communication devices disguised as luxury phones. I'll be monitoring everything from the van outside. If anything goes wrong, if you feel unsafe for even a moment, use the code phrase we discussed. The plan was deceptively simple. They would attend a business dinner at the Four Seasons Hotel, where Omar regularly met with potential investors and partners. Layla's intelligence suggested that members of the criminal network would likely approach them there, hoping to assess how successfully their manipulation was working. As they drove through Cairo's evening traffic, Zara tried to calm her racing heart. She had never been an actress, never been good at deception. Yet here she was about to perform the role of her life for an audience that would kill her if they discovered the truth. "Tell me about your business again," she said, partly to review their cover story and partly to distract herself from her fear. "I need to sound like someone who's genuinely interested in her fiancé's work." Omar's expression softened slightly. "Al-Mansouri Energy specializes in sustainable oil extraction techniques. We work with governments across West Africa to develop their energy resources while minimizing environmental impact. It's actually work I'm passionate about, finding ways to help developing nations benefit from their natural resources without destroying their ecosystems." There was something in his voice that made Zara look at him more closely. "You really care about this, don't you? It's not just about money for you." "My grandfather was a fisherman," Omar said quietly. "He watched the Gulf waters become polluted by careless oil operations, saw his livelihood destroyed by companies that took what they wanted and left nothing but environmental devastation behind. I swore I would do things differently." This glimpse of the real man behind the wealthy facade surprised Zara. She had expected him to be just another privileged businessman, but there was genuine passion in his voice when he spoke about his work. The Four Seasons Hotel was ablaze with lights when they arrived. The valet took Omar's keys, and they walked into the lobby hand in hand, their first public performance as an engaged couple. Zara was surprised by how natural it felt to walk beside him, their steps automatically falling into sync. The business dinner was held in a private dining room, filled with Cairo's elite, government officials, international investors, and representatives from various energy companies. Zara recognized the type immediately. These were the kinds of people she had served at the Meridian, wealthy and powerful individuals who moved in circles far removed from her world. Omar introduced her as his fiancée, and Zara was struck by how easily the lies rolled off his tongue. He told their fabricated love story with such conviction that she almost believed it herself, how they had met through mutual friends, how he had been enchanted by her intelligence and grace, how he had known immediately that she was the woman he wanted to marry. "She's helped me see that there's more to life than quarterly profit reports," Omar said, his arm around her waist as they spoke with a group of potential investors. "Zara has this way of cutting through all the business complexity and asking the questions that really matter." Zara played her part, smiling shyly and speaking about how overwhelming it was to suddenly be engaged to such a successful man. She wasn't entirely acting. The attention, the luxury, the constant scrutiny from curious strangers was genuinely overwhelming. It was during the second course that she noticed him, a man at a corner table who seemed to be watching them more intently than the others. He was well-dressed but didn't quite fit in with the business crowd, his eyes too sharp, his attention too focused. When their gazes met briefly, he raised his wine glass in a subtle toast before looking away. "Omar," she whispered, leaning close to his ear as if sharing an intimate comment. "There's a man at the corner table who's been watching us all evening." Omar's expression didn't change, but she felt his body tense slightly. "Describe him too." "Men, mid-40s, dark hair, wearing a navy suit with a red tie. He's sitting alone but seems to know several people here." Omar nodded almost imperceptibly. "That's David Morrison, supposedly a journalist for International Energy Weekly. But Layla's research suggests he's actually one of Fashila's contacts." As if summoned by their conversation, Morrison approached their table during a lull in the dinner conversation. "Excuse me," he said with a charming smile, "but I couldn't help noticing the beautiful couple. I'm David Morrison from International Energy Weekly. I wonder if I might have a few minutes to speak with you both about your recent engagement. Our readers are always interested in the personal side of business success stories." Omar smiled pleasantly, but Zara could feel the tension radiating from him. "Of course, though I should mention that we're still quite private about our personal life." Morrison pulled out a small recording device, naturally. I'm particularly interested in how you two met. These cross-cultural romances are always so fascinating. This was it, their first real test. Zara took a deep breath and launched into their rehearsed story, speaking with the nervous excitement of a woman still adjusting to her sudden change in circumstances. It's all been so sudden, she said, fidgeting with her engagement ring in what she hoped looked like unconscious behavior. I never imagined my life would change so dramatically. A few months ago, I was just working at a hotel, sending money home to my family, and now. She gestured helplessly at the elegant dining room, the designer dress, the wealthy people surrounding them. Morrison leaned forward with apparent sympathy. It must be quite an adjustment. How did your family react to the news? They're thrilled, of course, Zara said, thinking of her parents' genuine confusion and fear. My mother's health has been poor, and knowing that I'll be financially secure has been such a relief for them. Ah yes, Morrison said casually. I understand Omar was quite generous in helping with medical expenses even before your engagement was announced. That must have meant a great deal to your family. The question was a trap, designed to see if Zara knew about the payments that had been made months before she supposedly met Omar. She felt Omar's hand tighten slightly on hers, a warning to be careful. Omar is incredibly generous, she said, allowing confusion to color her voice. Though, I'm not sure what you mean about medical expenses. We only met recently. Morrison's eyes sharpened slightly, but his smile remained friendly. My apologies, I must have misunderstood something I heard earlier. These business dinners, you know how stories get confused. But Zara could see that he was filing away her response, analyzing whether her confusion was genuine or performed. The game had begun in earnest, and every word, every gesture, every expression was being evaluated by people who killed for a living. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of careful conversations and calculated performances. Zara found herself genuinely impressed by Omar's skill at navigating the complex social dynamics of the business world. The way he could make allies and deflect potential threats with equal ease. When Morrison finally excused himself, he handed Zara his business card with another charming smile. I do hope we'll have a chance to speak again soon. Perhaps when you're more settled into your new life. As they watched him leave, Omar squeezed her hand gently. You did well, he murmured. But that was just the beginning. Later that evening, back at Omar's apartment, Layla debriefed them on what her surveillance team had observed. Morrison made 3 phone calls immediately after leaving the hotel, she reported. 2 were to numbers we've traced to Fashila's network, and the 3rd was to a phone registered to Chun Wei, the Chinese operative we identified earlier. What does that mean? Zara asked, finally allowing herself to collapse into a chair, exhausted by the constant performance. It means they're interested, Layla said with satisfaction. Your performance was convincing enough that they want to move to the next phase of their operation, Omar frowned. Which is? According to the intercepted calls, they want to arrange a more intimate meeting. Morrison is going to invite you both to a private party this weekend, the kind of exclusive gathering where business deals are made and secrets are shared. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. More intimate sounded decidedly dangerous. They're going to try to separate you, Layla continued. Get Zara alone so they can start the real recruitment process. They'll probably approach her as potential friends or mentors, offering to help her navigate her new life as a wealthy man's wife. Absolutely not, Omar said immediately. I won't let her walk into that kind of situation alone. She won't be alone, Layla assured him. I'll be there as backup, and we'll have surveillance equipment throughout the venue. But Zara needs to understand, this is where things get really dangerous. They're going to try to turn her into their spy, and if they suspect she's not genuinely naive and vulnerable. The implication hung in the air, unspoken but understood by all of them. Zara looked at Omar, seeing the conflict in his eyes, the desire to protect her warring with the knowledge that stopping now would mean letting dangerous criminals escape. "Justice. I'm not backing out," she said firmly. "These people have manipulated my family, threatened my parents, and turned my life upside down. I want to see this through to the end." But as she said the words, she realized that her motivations were becoming more complex. Yes, she wanted justice for what had been done to her family. But she was also beginning to care about Omar in ways that had nothing to do with their fake engagement. And that terrified her more than any criminal conspiracy. In 3 days, she would walk into a room full of people who wanted to use her as a weapon against the man she was supposed to be protecting. And she was no longer sure which would be more dangerous, the criminals trying to recruit her, or her own growing feelings for the man she was supposed to be betraying. The exclusive yacht party was everything Zara had expected and more. The massive vessel, anchored in the Mediterranean just off the coast of Alexandria, represented wealth on a scale she had never imagined. Crystal chandeliers swayed gently with the boat's movement, while guests in designer evening wear mingled unpolished, decks under strings of twinkling lights. Zara stood at the yacht's railing, champagne flute in hand, watching Omar work the crowd. With the easy confidence of a man born to this world. 3 days of intensive preparation with Layla had transformed her from a nervous amateur into someone who could at least appear comfortable among Egypt's social elite. But her heart still raced every time she remembered what they were really here to do. Nervous? A voice asked behind her. Zara turned to find an elegant woman in her 50s approaching, her silver hair swept into a sophisticated chignon, and her jewelry clearly worth more than most people's annual salaries. Everything about her screamed old money and refined taste. A little, Zara admitted, deciding that honesty would serve her better than pretense. "I'm still getting used to all of this." The woman smiled warmly. "I'm Isabella Chun. I don't believe we've been properly introduced, though I've heard quite a bit about Omar's mysterious fiancée." Chun, the surname made Zara's pulse quicken. This had to be connected to Chen Wei, the Chinese operative Layla had identified. But this woman seemed genuinely kind, nothing like the dangerous criminal Zara had expected to encounter. "Zara Okafor," she replied, extending her hand. And mysterious is probably the right word. Sometimes I feel like I don't even recognize my own life anymore. Isabella's laugh was melodious and seemingly genuine. "Oh, my dear, I know exactly what you mean. When I married my late husband 30 years ago, I went from being a graduate student in international relations to the wife of one of Hong Kong's most prominent shipping magnates. The transition was overwhelming." As they talked, Zara found herself genuinely liking Isabella. The older woman had a way of putting her at ease, sharing stories of her own adjustment to high society with humor and wisdom. It was only when Isabella casually mentioned her nephew Wei and his work in energy development that Zara realized how skillfully she was being manipulated. "You know," Isabella said, her tone becoming more intimate, "I've always believed that women like us, women who married into this world rather than being born to it, need to look out for each other. The men in our lives, wonderful as they are, sometimes don't understand the unique challenges we face." Zara nodded, sensing that this was the opening she had been warned about. "It's true. Omar is incredible, but sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in a world I don't understand. The business, the social expectations, the constant attention, Exactly," Isabella exclaimed, placing a gentle hand on Zara's arm. "And the truth is, darling, knowledge is power in this world. The more you understand about Omar's business, his associates, his plans, the better equipped you'll be to support him and protect yourself." There it was, the recruitment pitch disguised as sisterly advice. Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Mediterranean breeze. "I suppose you're right," she said carefully. "But Omar doesn't really discuss business with me. He says he wants to keep that part of his life separate, that I shouldn't worry about such things. Isabella's eyes sparkled with what looked like genuine sympathy, but Zara could now see the calculating intelligence beneath the kindly facade. Men always think they're protecting us by keeping us in the dark, but what happens if something goes wrong? What if Omar is ever in trouble and you're left completely helpless because you know nothing about his affairs? The logic was seductive, and Zara could see how an actually naive young woman might be completely taken in by Isabella's apparent concern. I never thought of it that way. Let me tell you something, Isabella said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. My nephew Wei works in energy development across Africa. He's mentioned Omar's company several times, always with great respect, I should add, but there are concerns in the industry about some of the political situations Omar is navigating. Zara's stomach clenched. This was it. They were about to try to turn her into their spy. What kind of concerns? Nothing serious, I'm sure, Isabella said quickly. But there are rumors about government instability in some of the countries where Omar has drilling rights. Changes in leadership could mean changes in contracts, potential losses that could affect not just his business, but his personal safety as well. The woman was good, Zara had to admit. Every word was calculated to plant seeds of doubt and fear, to make her feel like she needed insider information to protect her supposed fiancé. I had no idea, Zara said, allowing worry to creep into her voice. Omar hasn't mentioned anything about political problems. Of course he hasn't, Isabella said with a knowing smile. He's trying to protect you from worrying. But wouldn't you rather know the truth so you can be prepared? So you can be a true partner to him instead of just a beautiful ornament? Before Zara could respond, a man appeared at Isabella's side, tall, distinguished, with silver hair and pale blue eyes that seemed to see everything. Zara recognized him immediately from Layla's surveillance photos. Viktor Petrov, the Russian oligarch who was one of the masterminds behind the entire operation. Isabella, you're monopolizing our guest of honor, he said with a charming accent. Extending his hand to Zara, Viktor Petrov. I've been looking forward to meeting the woman who captured Omar's heart. Zara shook his hand, trying not to shudder at the contact. This man had orchestrated the elaborate deception that had manipulated her family and put them all in danger. Yet he stood before her now with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to getting away with anything. The pleasure is mine, she managed to say. I was just telling Zara about the importance of being informed about her fiancé's business affairs, Isabella said smoothly. Victor's smile never wavered, but something flickered in his pale eyes. Ah yes, such a delicate balance for the wives of men in high-stakes industries. Too much knowledge can be burdensome, but too little can be dangerous. Dangerous? Zara asked, playing her role. My dear, Victor said, his tone becoming paternal. Omar operates in some very volatile regions. Nigeria, Chad, Angola. These are places where political situations can change overnight. A wise woman prepares herself for all possibilities. Across the deck, Zara caught sight of Omar, deep in conversation with a group of potential investors. For a moment, their eyes met, and she saw the concern in his gaze. He knew she was being recruited, and there was nothing he could do to intervene without blowing their cover. Perhaps, Victor continued, you would benefit from having some friends who could keep you informed about developments that might affect Omar's business. People with connections throughout the region who could give you advance warning of any problems. That's very kind of you to offer, Zara said, her heart pounding. But I wouldn't even know what to ask about or what to look for. Oh, it would be quite simple, Isabella assured her. Just little things, copies of contracts. Omar brings home guest lists from business dinners, travel itineraries. Nothing that would compromise his business, just information that would help us all stay informed about market conditions. They were asking her to spy on Omar, to steal his business secrets and pass them along to his competitors. The casual way they presented it, as if they were offering to help her navigate a social situation rather than commit corporate espionage, was chilling in its sophistication. I'm not sure Omar would be comfortable with me discussing his business with other people, Zara said hesitantly. Victor chuckled. My dear, successful men like Omar are always comfortable with their wives having sophisticated friends. In fact, he would probably be proud to know that you're taking an active interest in understanding his world. Besides, Isabella added, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. This would just be between us girls. A little network of support. For women navigating the complex world of international business, Zara felt sick. These people were experts at manipulation, at making criminal activities sound like friendship and betrayal seem like wisdom. She could see how easily a truly naive young woman could be drawn into their web. I need to think about this, she said finally. It's all so new to me, and I don't want to make any mistakes. Of course, Victor said smoothly. Take all the time you need. But don't wait too long. Political situations can change quickly. And advance warning could mean the difference between financial security and devastating losses. As if on cue, Isabella pulled out an elegant business card. This has my private number. Call me anytime, day or night, if you want to talk. Remember, we're here to help you succeed in this new life. The card felt like poison in Zara's hand, but she smiled and tucked it into her purse. Thank you both. You've been so kind to a complete stranger. Nonsense, Isabella said with apparent warmth. We women must stick together. As they walked away, Zara caught Victor saying something to Isabella in what sounded like Russian. She wished she understood the language, but the tone was clearly one of satisfaction. They thought they had successfully recruited her. Omar appeared at her side moments later, his face a mask of casual concern. Having an interesting conversation? Very educational, Zara replied, linking her arm through his. I learned quite a bit about the importance of staying informed. Omar's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm sure you did. Are you ready to head home? It's getting late. As they made their goodbyes and prepared to leave the yacht, Zara felt the weight of Isabella's business card in her purse like a ticking bomb. She had successfully passed the first phase of their recruitment process, but now came the really dangerous part, convincing them. She was willing to betray the man she was supposed to love while actually working to bring down their entire network. The game had moved to a new level, and the stakes had never been higher. In her earpiece, she could hear Layla's voice, barely audible. Excellent work. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. But as Omar helped her into the car, his hand warm and reassuring in hers, Zara realized that the most dangerous part of this entire operation wasn't the international criminals or the sophisticated surveillance equipment. It was the fact that somewhere along the way, her feelings for Omar had stopped being part of the act. And in a world where lives hung in the balance and trust could mean the difference between success and death, falling in love with her fake fiancé was the one complication none of them had planned for. The morning after the yacht party, Zara sat in Omar's kitchen, staring at Isabella's business card while nursing her second cup of coffee. The elegant cardstock felt heavier than it should, weighted with implications and dangers she was still processing. Across from her, Omar worked on his laptop, occasionally glancing up with barely concealed worry. Layla burst through the apartment door without knocking, her usually composed demeanor replaced by urgent energy. She carried a tablet displaying multiple windows of surveillance footage and intercepted communications. We have a problem, she announced, setting the tablet on the kitchen counter. And an opportunity. Omar closed his laptop immediately. What kind of problem? The kind that could get us all killed if we're not extremely careful, Layla replied, pulling up a series of photographs on her screen. After you left the yacht last night, our targets had a very interesting conversation. We managed to intercept most of it. She pressed play on an audio file. Viktor Petrov's accented voice filled the kitchen, speaking in heavily accented English. The girl is perfect. Naive enough to be manipulated, but intelligent enough to be useful. Chun believes she can be fully turned within a week. Isabella's voice responded, I agree. She's desperate to fit into this world, and she's clearly overwhelmed by the complexity of her new life. The key is making her feel like we're offering empowerment, not exploitation. A third voice that Zara didn't recognize chimed in. What about the timeline? Mansouri's company is scheduled to announce their new drilling discoveries next month. If we don't have access to those geological surveys before the public announcement, we'll have access. Victor's voice cut him off coldly. The girl will provide everything we need. She doesn't realize it yet, but she's going to become our most valuable asset. Zara's blood ran cold. They weren't just planning to use her as a spy. They had a specific timeline and specific targets in mind. There's more, Layla said grimly, switching to another audio file. This is from a call Victor made to someone in Moscow after the party. The new recording was entirely in Russian, but Layla provided a simultaneous translation. He's reporting to his superiors about the operation's progress. He specifically mentions that if Zara proves reluctant to cooperate fully, they have additional leverage they can apply. Omar stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. What kind of additional leverage? Layla's expression was grave. Your family, Zara. They've been watching your parents in Lagos even more closely than we realized. If you don't deliver the information they want, they're prepared to escalate their threats. The coffee cup slipped from Zara's suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. The sound seemed to echo in the tense silence that followed. My parents are supposed to be protected, she whispered. You said your people were watching. Them. They are, Layla assured her quickly. But these people have resources we're still discovering. They've been planning this operation for over a year, and they have backup plans for their backup plans. Omar was already reaching for his secure phone. I'm calling this off. We go to Interpol today with everything we have. Wait, Zara said, her voice stronger than she felt. What was the opportunity you mentioned? Layla hesitated, clearly reluctant to continue. The timeline they mentioned. Omar's company announcing new drilling discoveries next month. If we can feed them false information about those discoveries, we might be able to trace their entire network when they act on it. Absolutely not, Omar said firmly. I won't use fake geological data as bait. If incorrect information gets out, it could crash my company's stock price and destroy investor confidence. But if we don't, Layla pointed out, they'll just disappear. And try again with someone else. Maybe someone without our resources to fight back. Zara stood up slowly, glass crunching under her shoes. Her mind was racing, weighing options that all seemed to lead to disaster. There's a third option. Both Omar and Layla turned to look at her. We give them exactly what they want, she continued, but we control how they get it and when they use it. Omar frowned. I don't understand. What if I become their perfect asset? What if I convince them that I'm completely turned, that I'm willing to spy on you for them, but I'm still new at this and need their guidance? Layla's eyes lit up with understanding. You could control the flow of information. Feed them real intelligence, but always slightly outdated or incomplete. Make them think they're getting valuable intelligence while actually getting useless data. And meanwhile, Zara continued, we use their own communication networks against them. If I'm their trusted asset, they'll communicate more freely around me. We could map their entire organization. Omar shook his head. Too dangerous. If they suspect for even a moment that you're playing them, then we make sure they never suspect, Zara said with more confidence than she felt. I become the perfect naive young woman who's been successfully recruited to spy on her wealthy fiancé. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Isabella's name. appeared on the screen. "Good morning, dear. I hope you slept well. I was thinking about our conversation last night, and I have some ideas that might help you feel more secure in your new situation. Coffee this afternoon?" The three of them stared at the message. The recruitment process was accelerating exactly as they had predicted. "This is it," Layla said quietly. "Decision time. We either commit fully to this operation, or we abort now and hope we can build a case with what we already have." Zara looked at Omar, seeing the conflict in his dark eyes. She knew he wanted to protect her, but she also knew that backing down now would mean these criminals would escape to victimize other families. "I'm meeting Isabella for coffee," she announced, typing a response before anyone could stop her. "And I'm going to convince her that I'm ready to become their spy." Omar caught her hand before she could send the message. "Zara, if you do this, there's no going back. Once you're inside their network, any mistake could be fatal." She met his gaze steadily. "Omar, these people manipulated my family, put my parents in danger, and tried to turn me into a weapon against you. I'm not backing down now." After a moment, he nodded reluctantly and released her hand. She sent the message accepting Isabella's invitation. The response came back immediately. "Wonderful. Meet me at Cafe Rich at 3 p.m. I'm so excited to help you navigate this exciting new chapter of your life." The rest of the morning was spent in intensive preparation. Layla equipped Zara with more sophisticated surveillance equipment, a nearly invisible camera disguised as a button on her blouse, an advanced audio recorder that looked like ordinary jewelry, and a panic signal disguised as a cosmetic compact. "Remember," Layla instructed, "your goal is to seem eager but inexperienced. Ask lots of questions about how to access Omar's information without getting caught. Make them think you need their guidance to be effective." Omar pulled her aside as she prepared to leave for the cafe. "I need you to understand something," he said, his voice intense. "What we're doing here, this isn't just about business anymore. These people killed to protect their operations before, and they won't hesitate to kill again." "I understand the risks," Zara replied. "Do you?" Omar stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. "Because somewhere in the middle of all this deception and danger, something real has developed between us. And I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you because of my business." The confession hung in the air between them, dangerous and electric. Zara felt her heart skip a beat as she realized he was voicing what she had been afraid to acknowledge, that their fake engagement had become something much more complicated. "Omar," she began, but he shook his head. "Don't say anything now. Just be careful. Trust your instincts, and if anything feels wrong, get out immediately." Cafe Rich was one of Cairo's oldest and most elegant establishments, the kind of place where important conversations had been happening for over a century. Isabella was already seated at a corner table when Zara arrived, looking every inch the sophisticated mentor in her designer outfit and perfectly applied makeup. "Darling," Isabella exclaimed, rising to embrace Zara warmly. "You look lovely. Though I must say, you still seem a bit overwhelmed by everything. That's perfectly natural, of course." As they settled into their seats, Isabella immediately began what Zara now recognized as a masterful manipulation session. Every comment was designed to make Zara feel insecure about her place in Omar's world while simultaneously offering solutions that involved betraying his trust. "I've been thinking about our conversation last night," Isabella said, stirring sugar into her tea with elegant precision. "And I realize I may have overwhelmed you with suggestions. Let's start with something simple." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, expensive-looking device that resembled a USB drive. "This is a very sophisticated piece of technology. If you could plug it into Omar's computer for just a few minutes, it would copy some basic information that my nephew's company uses to assess market conditions." Zara stared at the device, recognizing it for what it was, Advanced spyware that would give them complete access to Omar's business files. I don't know, she said hesitantly. What if Omar notices something strange on his computer? Oh, this is completely undetectable, Isabella assured her. And you'd only need to use it once. After that, we'd have everything we need to help protect you and Omar from potential political instabilities. The lie was delivered so smoothly, with such apparent sincerity, that Zara could see how a genuinely naive person would be completely taken in. You really think this would help keep Omar safe? She asked, allowing uncertainty and hope to color her voice. Absolutely, Isabella said, reaching across the table to squeeze Zara's hand. Knowledge is protection, dear. The more we know about potential problems, the better we can help Omar navigate them. Zara picked up the device, turning it over in her hands as if examining it. In reality, she was giving Layla's surveillance team time to photograph it from multiple angles. All right, she said finally, slipping the device into her purse. I'll try to find an opportunity to use it. But I'm nervous about doing this behind Omar's back. Isabella's smile was radiant with triumph. You're doing the right thing, darling. Omar will thank you someday, even if he never knows exactly how you protected him. As they finished their coffee and made plans for future meetings, Zara realized that she had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She was now officially a double agent, trusted by one of the most dangerous criminal networks in the world. But as she walked back to Omar's apartment, the USB drive feeling like a loaded weapon in her purse, she couldn't shake the feeling that the most dangerous part of this entire operation wasn't the international criminals or the sophisticated surveillance equipment. It was the fact that her feelings for Omar were becoming more real with every passing day, and in a world built on lies and deception, genuine emotion was the one thing that could destroy them all. 2 weeks later, everything came to a head on what should have been the happiest day of Zara's fabricated new life. The elaborate engagement party that Omar's family had insisted on hosting was being held at the Grand Hyatt Cairo, with over 200 guests from Cairo's business and social elite. What none of the guests knew was that half of Layla's surveillance team was working as catering staff, and the other half had been monitoring communications all week. Zara stood in the bridal suite, wearing a stunning emerald green gown that cost more than her family's house in Lagos, but her hands were shaking as she adjusted her jewelry. Tonight was the night they would spring their trap on Viktor Petrov's entire network, but first, she had to survive what promised to be the most dangerous performance of her life. The USB device Isabella had given her 2 weeks ago had been a goldmine of intelligence. Layla's tech team had modified it to work as a double agent itself, feeding the criminals carefully crafted false information while simultaneously mapping their entire network. Through it, they had discovered that the operation was even larger than they had imagined, spanning 5 countries and involving government officials, military contractors, and energy companies across 3 continents. But tonight, Victor and his associates planned to move to the final phase of their plan. According to intercepted communications, they believed Zara was now fully under their control and ready to provide them with the geological surveys that would allow them to steal billions of dollars in oil rights. What they didn't know was that every piece of information they thought they had obtained was carefully fabricated. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting to see Layla with final instructions. Instead, Isabella Chen entered, looking elegant in a midnight blue gown that complemented her silver hair perfectly. But something was different about her tonight. The motherly warmth was gone, replaced by a cold calculation that made Zara's skin crawl. "Hello, darling," Isabella said, closing the door behind her with deliberate precision. "You look absolutely radiant. A blushing bride-to-be." "Thank you," Zara replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm a bit nervous about tonight. So many important people." Isabella moved closer, her smile sharp as a blade. "Yes, it's quite a gathering." including some people who are very interested in the progress you've made with our little project." The way she said it sent alarm bells ringing in Zara's mind. Something had changed. Isabella's demeanor was completely different from their previous meetings. "I've been doing everything you asked," Zara said carefully. "The information from Omar's computer, his travel schedules, the geological reports. Yes, you have been very thorough," Isabella agreed, but her tone was dangerous. Perhaps too thorough. Zara's heart began to race. "I don't understand." Isabella pulled out her phone and showed Zara a series of photographs, surveillance images of Layla entering Omar's building, of Zara meeting with government officials who were actually Interpol agents, of the entire support team that had been protecting her family in Lagos. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" Isabella asked softly. "We've been in this business for 20 years, my dear. We know when we're being played." The room seemed to spin around Zara. Their entire operation had been compromised, which meant that everyone, Omar, Layla, her parents, was in immediate danger. "I don't know what those pictures are supposed to show," Zara said, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. "They show that you've been working with law enforcement." "From the very beginning," Isabella replied, circling Zara like a predator. "They show that this entire engagement is an elaborate setup designed to expose our network." Zara backed against the window, her mind racing. If they knew about the setup, why was Isabella here alone? Why hadn't they simply disappeared as criminals usually did when their operations were compromised? As if reading her thoughts, Isabella smiled coldly. "You're wondering why we haven't simply vanished into the night. The answer is simple. We've invested too much in this operation to walk away empty-handed." She moved to the door and opened it slightly. 2 large men in security uniforms entered, but Zara could see from their posture and the bulges in their jackets that they were armed and definitely not hotel security. "You see, dear Zara, even if we can't steal Omar's geological data, we can still salvage something valuable from this situation. A wealthy oil executive's fiancé would be worth quite a substantial ransom. And if Omar refuses to pay, well, there are several governments that would pay handsomely for information about his drilling operations." The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. They weren't trying to escape. They were pivoting to kidnapping and extortion. "Omar will never give you what you want," Zara said, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "Perhaps not," Isabella agreed. "But he'll certainly try, and the attempt will expose all the information we need about his business operations. Either way, we win." One of the men moved towards Zara, but she held up her hand. "Wait, before you do whatever you're planning to do, I need to know something." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "This should be interesting." "Was any of it real?" Zara asked. "The concern for my adjustment to this lifestyle, the advice about protecting myself in Omar's world, was any of it genuine?" Isabella's laugh was harsh and mocking. "My dear child, nothing about this has been real except the money we've spent and the profits we expected to gain. You were never anything more than a tool to us." The words hit Zara like a physical blow, but they also clarified something important. Whatever feelings had developed between her and Omar during this ordeal, whatever connection she had felt with him, those were real. Everything else had been manipulation and lies. "You're wrong about one thing," Zara said, reaching into her purse as if to get her phone. "And what's that?" Isabella asked. Instead of her phone, Zara pulled out the cosmetic compact that Layla had given her weeks ago, the panic signal. She opened it, triggering the silent alarm that would bring every law enforcement officer in the building rushing to her location. "You assumed I was working alone," she said. Just as the room's windows exploded inward, Layla and a team of tactical officers rappelled through the shattered glass, their weapons drawn and voices shouting commands in Arabic and English. The 2 fake security guards were on the ground and handcuffed before they could even reach for their weapons. Isabella tried to run for the door, but found her path blocked by Omar himself, flanked by 2 Interpol agents. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice deadly calm. As chaos swirled around them, Omar's eyes found Zara's across the room. Despite everything they had been through, despite all the lies and deception and danger, the look that passed between them was absolutely genuine. "Are you hurt?" he asked, moving toward her. "I'm fine," she said, though she was shaking from the adrenaline rush. "But Omar, they knew. They've known about our operation for weeks." "We counted on that," Layla said, removing her tactical helmet and shaking glass from her hair. "Once we realized they were onto us, we decided to let them think they were playing us while we prepared this trap." "The engagement party was bait?" Zara asked. Omar nodded grimly. "The perfect opportunity to get their entire leadership in one place. Viktor Petrov and 6 other members of their network are being arrested downstairs as we speak. Isabella, now, in handcuffs, looked at Zara with something approaching respect. "You're much better at this than I gave you credit for." "I had good teachers," Zara replied. "Unfortunately for you, they were on the right side of the law." As the law enforcement teams processed the crime scene and arrested the remaining members of the criminal network, Omar and Zara found themselves alone on the hotel's rooftop garden. The engagement party continued below, with most guests unaware that a major international operation had just been concluded above their heads. "So," Omar said, leaning against the railing as they looked out over Cairo's glittering skyline, "what happens now?" It was the question Zara had been dreading. Their fake engagement had served its purpose. The criminals were caught, and her family was safe. In the normal course of events, she would return to her life as a hotel waitress, and Omar would go back to running his oil company. They would go their separate ways, with nothing but memories of the strangest few weeks of their lives. "I suppose I go back to serving tables at the Meridian," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "Though I suspect I'll never look at wealthy businessmen the same way again." Omar was quiet for a long moment. "What if you didn't have to go back?" Zara turned to look at him, her heart beginning to race for entirely different reasons than it. "Head upstairs. What do you mean?" "I mean," Omar said, turning to face her fully, "what if some part of this was real? What if, in the middle of all the lies and deception and danger, something genuine developed between us?" The hope in his voice made her chest tight with emotion. "Omar, we barely know each other. Everything about our relationship has been fabricated." "For this operation, has it?" he asked, stepping closer. "The way you laugh when you think no one is watching? The way you worry about your family? The way you risked everything to protect people you care about? That wasn't fabricated, Zara. That was all you." She felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. "But how do we know what's real and what's just leftover emotions from a high-stress situation?" Omar smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression she had seen from him in weeks. "There's only one way to find out, which is, we start over," he said simply. "No fake engagements, no elaborate cover stories, no international criminals trying to kill us. Just Omar and Zara getting to know each other like normal people. And if it turns out we have nothing in common once the danger is gone, then at least we'll know," Omar said. "But if it turns out that what we felt during all of this was real. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The possibility hung in the air between them, fragile and precious and worth exploring. 6 months later, Zara stood in Omar's kitchen again, but this time everything was different. She wasn't wearing a wire or playing a role or pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was simply making breakfast for the man she had fallen in love with, not during a dangerous undercover operation, but in the quiet moments afterward when they had discovered that their connection was strong enough to survive in the real world. Omar's oil company had implemented new security measures based on their experience with the criminal network, and He had started a foundation to help families dealing with medical crises, like the one that had originally made Zara's family vulnerable to exploitation. Zara had returned to school to study international business, with Omar's encouragement and financial support. She wanted to understand his world not because she was spying on him, but because she genuinely cared about the work he was doing to develop Africa's energy resources responsibly. Her parents had finally learned the full truth about what had happened. And while they were initially shocked and frightened, they had come to Cairo to meet Omar properly. Her father had been impressed by Omar's genuine respect for Zara's independence and intelligence, and her mother had recovered fully from her surgery. Any regrets? Omar asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she cooked. Zara leaned back against his chest, feeling truly safe for the first time in months. About which part? Nearly getting killed by international criminals, or falling in love with a man I met because I served the wrong table. Either. Both. She turned in his arms, looking up into the dark eyes that had first confused her then, frightened her, and finally captured her heart completely. No regrets, she said firmly. After all, if I hadn't made that mistake at the hotel, I never would have met the love of my life. And as Omar kissed her in the morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows, Zara reflected that sometimes the most beautiful love stories began with the most unlikely mistakes. Her life had been turned upside down by serving the wrong table, but in the end, it had led her exactly where she was meant to be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.